They called her the dust of the earth, a girl with no shoes, no surname, and no hope. But the day she wiped tears with the corner of her torn dress in front of his car, the richest man in South Africa stopped his world. He didn't know her name. She didn't know his worth. Yet that single tear changed everything. From the glass towers of Sandton to the forgotten corners of Limpopo, their love became a storm no amount of money could silence. Because when poverty meets power, one must bow. This is the story of how a man who owned everything fell for the one woman who owned nothing, yet gave him everything his money could never buy: peace. This is part 2.
The city of Johannesburg was cruel that morning. Rainwater mixed with dust, forming brown rivers that crawled between taxi tires. Street vendors covered their goods with plastic sheets, and the air smelled of wet pavement and exhaust. Inside one of Sandton's tallest skyscrapers, the Kabelo Makona Foundation Tower, cleaners moved silently through the marble floors before dawn. Among them was a young woman in a faded uniform, her face half covered by a cheap mask. It was Nandi. Her fingers, blistered and cracked, gripped the mop handle like a lifeline. Every stroke reminded her of home, of her grandmother's fading voice, of the man who once looked at her like she was the only light in a dark world. She didn't know the building she cleaned belonged to that same man. At exactly 8 a.m., the elevator doors opened and security guards straightened their ties. The richest man in South Africa had arrived. Kabelo Makona stepped out, dressed in a gray suit that whispered wealth with every movement. Cameras followed him, journalists waited, and secretaries rushed to keep up. But his eyes were distant, searching for something no one else could see. It had been 6 months since he last saw her. 6 months since he'd tasted joy in something as simple as a smile. He had searched every township, orphanage, and hospital, even offered a reward quietly through his foundation, but no one brought news of Nandi. Until that morning. He was walking to his office when he saw her, bent over the glass wall, cleaning the very window that bore his name. His heart stopped. Nandi? It came out as a whisper, but it was enough. She froze. The sound of that voice, deep, gentle, unforgettable, sent a shiver through her bones. She turned slowly, her eyes wide with disbelief. For a second, neither of them breathed. Then her lips parted, trembling. Kabelo? The entire hallway fell silent. Secretaries exchanged looks. Cameras clicked. But the world faded. It was just the billionaire and the girl who once had nothing. He walked toward her slowly, afraid she would vanish if he moved too fast. Tears filled his eyes as he took in her worn-out shoes, the fatigue in her face, and the strength still burning behind her tears. "You found me," she whispered. Kabelo smiled painfully. "No, Nandi. You never left me. Even when I tried to lose you." The manager hurried forward, flustered. "Sir, she's just one of the new cleaners. I'll get her out of your way immediately." Kabelo raised a hand. "Don't you dare." The man froze. Kabelo turned to Nandi. "You shouldn't be here, cleaning floors you were born to walk on proudly. Come with me." But Nandi shook her head, stepping back. "No, Kabelo, not like this. You don't understand. I didn't come to chase you. I came to survive. My grandmother is dying. I clean because it's the only thing I know how to do." He wanted to speak, but emotion choked him. He reached into his pocket, took out his black handkerchief, the same one he'd given her months ago in the village. She gasped. "You still have it?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Because it smelled like rain. Like you." Tears broke from her eyes. Everyone around tried not to look, but the story unfolding before them was too powerful to ignore. Kabelo took a step closer. "Nandi, I built hospitals, orphanages, and homes for people I'll never meet. But I couldn't build peace inside me after losing you. Let me help you now. Let me help her." Nandi shook her head again, tears falling freely. "I don't want your money, Kabelo. I just wanted your promise that you'd stay the man who saw me as a person, not a project." Her words hit him like thunder. He realized then that love was not charity. It was equality. He knelt, right there on the polished floor of his tower, in front of the poorest girl in the building. Gasps filled the air. Cameras flashed. He didn't care. He whispered, "Then I'll stay that man, Nandi. Even if I must kneel before the whole world to prove it." She bent down, her tears falling onto his hands. Their foreheads touched. For a moment, the noise, the wealth, the world, everything disappeared. But just as hope began to bloom again, Nandi's phone rang. She answered weakly. A nurse's voice came through, trembling. "Nandi, your grandmother didn't make it." The phone dropped from her hand. Kabelo caught her before she fell. She wailed into his chest, Deep, painful, raw. The entire building went still. Even the rain outside seemed to pause as if the heavens were mourning with her. Cabello held her tightly, whispering, "You're not alone anymore. Not now. Not ever." But in her heart, Nandi felt something break. Not just grief but fear. Fear that fate was warning her. Love and pain always came together.
The road back to Giamocapane was long and quiet. The rain had stopped, but its scent lingered, that damp, earthy perfume that always reminded Cabello of beginnings and endings. Nandi sat beside him in the back seat, silent. Her eyes were dry now, though swollen from crying. Her hands clutched her grandmother's old scarf, the one that smelled faintly of home and ashes. The convoy of black SUVs moved slowly through the rural roads. Children ran after them barefoot, their laughter echoing through the fields. To them, it was a spectacle, the richest man in South Africa coming to bury the poorest woman in the village. But for Nandi, it was not spectacle. It was heartbreak. When they arrived, the air in Giamocapane was thick with whispers. Old women at the market turned their heads. Men leaned on their motorbikes, murmuring under their breath. "Hi, boy, is that him? The billionaire?" "Yes, Cabello Makona." "And that girl beside him, that's Nandi, the orphan who cleaned his floors." Some smiled with awe. Others spat on the ground, shaking their heads. The truth was, Cabello's name wasn't new in this village. Long before he was a billionaire, the Makona name had been spoken here, in bitterness and memory. And as the convoy stopped before the old mud house, a wrinkled man in a brown coat approached slowly, leaning on a stick. His eyes were sharp, heavy with age and history. "Cabello Makona," he said, his voice low. "Do you remember this land?" Cabello frowned. "No, sir. I've never been here before." The man smiled sadly. "Maybe not you, but your father was." The words hit him like a chill. He turned to Nandi, who looked confused. "What does he mean?" she asked. The old man pointed at the field beyond the house, a wide, grassy stretch where maize once grew. "Your father, Mr. Thabo Makona, came here 30 years ago," the man said. "He bought land from our people. But when the drought came, he took the wells too. Our cattle died. Our children starved." Cabello felt his stomach twist. He knew his father had built an empire, but not the cost of it. The man's eyes darkened. And Nandi's grandmother, Mama Zanil, was the one who fought back. She led the women to fetch water from the government borehole he fenced off. He had her arrested. She spent 3 nights in jail. Nandi's hand flew to her mouth in shock. "My grandmother." The man nodded. "She never forgave the Makona name. She used to say, 'One day, their gold will kneel before our dust.'" The wind howled through the dry field. Nandi took a step back, her heart pounding. Cabello looked at her, eyes wide with guilt and disbelief. "Nandi, I swear I didn't know," he said. "My father." She raised her hand to stop him, her voice trembling. "Don't. Just don't. You came into my life with kindness, but your name, your family, they took everything from mine." Tears slipped down her cheeks. Cabello reached for her, but she pulled away. The funeral went on quietly. The pastor's voice rose in the distance, talking about forgiveness, about how the soil remembers both sin and sacrifice. But Nandi couldn't hear him. Her world was spinning. As the coffin was lowered, she whispered under her breath, "Maybe love was never meant to heal this kind of wound." Cabello knelt beside the grave, placing a white rose on it. He looked up at her, his voice breaking. "Nandi, if my father's gold buried your grandmother's peace, then let my love rebuild what he destroyed. I'll restore this land. I'll open wells again. I'll make things right." But she didn't answer. She turned away, walking through the crowd as the villagers watched. Some nodded approvingly. Others pitied him. Because for the first time, the richest man in South Africa looked powerless, not because he lacked money, but because the one heart he wanted to win was drowning in history. That night, Cabello stayed in the village alone. He sat outside under the same tree where Nandi used to sit as a child. The stars above Limpopo were cruelly bright. He whispered, "Father, you gave me the world, but you never told me whose world you took it from." Tears rolled down his face. Behind him, Nandi's voice came softly, almost like the wind. "Maybe God sent you back here to finish what your father started, not with greed, but with grace." He turned, but she was already walking away into the moonlight, her white scarf glowing faintly like a ghost's blessing. For the first time in his life, Cabello Macona woke up to the sound of roosters and wooden spoons, not car engines or glass elevators. He had stayed behind in Giamocapane. The sun rose slowly over the hills, touching the dusty roofs with a glow that made the village look almost holy. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke, wet soil, and boiled maize. And in that quiet, Cabello made a decision that would shock the nation. He would stay until he rebuilt everything his father's greed had destroyed. He sold one of his luxury cars the next morning, then another. The money funded the construction of a new borehole and a small clinic named Mama Zanil Memorial Health Center. He didn't send workers from Johannesburg. He came himself, rolled up his sleeves, put on an old t-shirt, and began digging alongside the villagers. The people watched in disbelief. "Is that really him?" someone whispered. "The billionaire?" another asked. A woman laughed. "No rich man carries buckets of sand." But Cabello did. Every morning, he fetched water with the women. He laughed with the children. He sat under mango trees eating pap and beans from metal plates. And at night, when the work was done, he would walk past Nandi's house just to see the faint orange glow of her candlelight flickering through the curtain. She still refused to speak to him. Sometimes she watched from her window, her heart a storm of confusion. How could the son of the man who ruined her grandmother's life now be the one building a hospital in her name? One evening, her friend Thandi said, "You can't keep hating a man who's trying to fix what he never broke." But Nandi shook her head. "You don't understand. My heart forgives him, but my blood remembers." Weeks passed. The well was finally ready. The entire village gathered to celebrate. Cabello stood near the pump, his shirt soaked with sweat, his hands trembling. He looked around, old women clapping, children cheering, men shaking his hand. Then Nandi walked in. Her white dress fluttered in the evening breeze. The crowd parted slowly as she approached. For a moment, everything felt like a dream, the kind of dream where you're afraid to wake up. Cabello bowed his head slightly. "You came," he said softly. She looked at the well, and then at him. "I came because it was my grandmother's dream to see water flow freely again." He nodded, smiling faintly. "Then let her dream live through both of us." Nandi hesitated. She saw the blisters on his hands, the dirt under his nails, proof that he hadn't come to impress her, but to heal something deeper than pride. She turned to the villagers. "Let the water flow." Cabello pumped the handle. Water burst out, crystal clear, sparkling under the setting sun. The villagers shouted in joy, ululating, dancing, clapping their hands. Children ran through the stream. Old women sang songs of praise. But Cabello wasn't watching them, he was watching her. The tears in her eyes. The smile she tried to hide. The way she whispered, "Thank you, Cabello," without looking at him. And in that moment he knew forgiveness had begun. Later that night, he sat alone under the same tree where he had prayed before. Nandi approached quietly, holding 2 cups of warm tea. "You forgot to eat," she said softly, handing him one. He looked up, surprised, his heart pounding. "Are you speaking to me again?" She smiled faintly. "Only because silence can't build peace." They drank quietly. The night was calm, the stars scattered like promises across the sky. Cabello whispered, "I used to think success was how high I could climb. Now I know it's how low I can bow." Nandi looked at him long and hard. "My grandmother used to say, love is not proven by what you give, but by what you're willing to carry. You carried our pain, Cabello. That's why I'm here." Her voice broke slightly. He reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. For the first time in months, their hearts were quiet, not healed, but breathing again. The villagers watched them from afar that night, whispering like witnesses to a sacred story. Maybe this is what God meant when he said the last shall be first. One of them murmured. The peace in Giamocapane didn't last. By the 4th week, the quiet rhythm of village life was broken by a storm of black cars and flashing cameras. The dust rose, the children screamed, and the air filled with confusion. Cabello stood beside the well he had built, his shirt rolled up, his hands stained with earth, where he heard the car doors slam. Then he saw her, Mrs. Mfomacona, his mother. Dressed in an ivory suit that shimmered even under the cloudy sky, she stepped out like a queen arriving in enemy territory. Her bodyguards followed, holding umbrellas, though the sky had yet to rain. Behind her came 2 men in suits, the board directors of Macona Group, and 3 journalists with cameras already recording. The villagers whispered in awe. "Hi, Ba, the billionaire's mother has come herself. She looks like she owns the country." She did once. At least, she thought she did. Nkalunkalu konkalunkalu, she muttered under her breath as she approached her son. Cabello, what in heaven's name are you doing here? He wiped sweat from his face, his tone calm. Fixing what father broke. Her eyes narrowed. By living in mud? By building wells for strangers? You are the CEO of a billion-rand empire, Cabello. And you've vanished for weeks without warning. Do you know what the media is saying? He smiled faintly. Maybe for once, the media is telling a story worth believing. Her voice rose, trembling with anger. I raised you to lead, not to labor. To stand above, not kneel in dust. And now look at you, digging holes, living among people who... She stopped mid-sentence as her gaze caught Nandi, standing by the mango tree in a simple white dress. Her expression froze. Who is that girl? Cabello turned slowly. That's Nandi. Fo's face hardened like stone. Ah, so this is the one. The one who made my son forget who he is. The crowd went silent. Nandi stepped forward slowly, trembling, her voice low, but steady. With respect, ma'am, I didn't make him forget who he is. I helped him remember. The villagers gasped. Fo's nostrils flared. You think you can talk to me like that? Do you know who I am? Yes, Nandi said softly. You are a mother who doesn't yet know her son's peace. The words cut through the air like thunder. Cabello stepped between them. Mom, enough. You can insult me, but you will not disrespect her. His mother's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but fury. I gave birth to a lion, and now you kneel like a lamb before a village girl? Cabello, this woman will ruin you. She's after your name, your wealth, your legacy. He shook his head. She never asked for anything. That's how I know it's real. Fo's voice trembled. You think love will fill boardrooms? You think it will silence investors? The world is laughing at us. The world laughed at Christ too, Cabello said quietly. But he didn't stop loving the poor. The villagers murmured in awe. Nandi's eyes welled up, seeing the man who once lived in skyscrapers now standing for her in the dust of her home. But then the journalists stepped forward, cameras flashing. Mr. Makona, one shouted. Is it true you've abandoned your empire for a cleaner girl? Miss Nandi, another yelled. Are you using the billionaire to escape poverty? The microphones came closer, the chaos rising. Cabello reached for her hand instinctively, shielding her from the flashes. But it was too late. Fo's voice cut through the noise, sharp as a blade. You see, Cabello? This is what you've brought upon us, shame. Look at her. Her grandmother cursed our name, and now her granddaughter wants to rewrite history. Nandi's face went pale. She stepped back, tears trembling on her lashes. You think I planned this, she whispered. Cabello turned to his mother, his voice breaking. Mom, stop. You're hurting the only person who ever healed me. Fo only sighed bitterly. If you stay with her, Cabello, you will lose everything. The company, the board, the family name. And then she turned, staring at Nandi with quiet venom. If you love him, girl, let him go. The words echoed long after the cars drove away. The sun was setting when Nandi sat alone by the well, staring at her reflection in the water. Her hands shook. Her heart felt heavy. She whispered to herself, maybe love that destroys peace is not love at all. When Cabello found her there, she was crying quietly. He tried to hold her, but she pulled away. Cabello, she said softly, you've given me more than I deserve, but I can't be the reason you lose the life you built. Go back to your world. He shook his head fiercely. My world is where you are. But she smiled faintly, touching his face with trembling fingers. Then build it again, Cabello. But build it right this time. Without me. She turned and walked away, leaving him by the well, the same well they built together. And as the night fell, the wind carried her last whisper, faint but final. Some loves are too heavy for one heart to carry. This is a convenient spot to stop. I hope you've been enjoying the story so far. If so, please subscribe to my channel if you've not done so before and press the notification button to be notified whenever I drop the third part of this story. Also drop your opinion in the comment section if you want part 3, and remember to let me know where you are watching from. Thank you for watching, and I wouldn't mind a cup of coffee from you. See you soonest.